Hey, how's it going? This week we read The Apology by Plato, and to kind of quickly summarize that, it basically takes place in a trial or like a courtroom setting where Plato, who is a follower, or I guess you could say a student of Socrates, was being put to trial for his ideas and his teachings. Although, I'll touch on it in a second, but they weren't really teachers or students per se. The government at the same time were saying that Socrates was a danger because he was trying to convince people of different, I guess, spiritual ways of thinking, and how they would classify it was the worst alternatives of spiritual disciplines. At the same time, the reason Plato is put on trial, one of the reasons is they were saying he was corrupting the youth, and that these kind of ideas that I guess had trickled down from Socrates were corrupting the youth and leading people astray, or and trying to go against the teachings that they had at the time about there being kind of a pantheon of gods or there being many gods. Plato uses this trial, in my opinion, as a time to dig into the idea of soul and integrity being put over wealth and status, like everybody else in the political parties were at that time. Some of the questions that were raised in this trial, I would say, are mostly moral dilemmas in the sense that a lot of Plato's arguments have to do about um, self reflection and self examination and humility and integrity and all of these sorts of things. I would say it's mostly moral questions are raised, but at the same time, there's kind of this. Um, Plato says it all comes from a spiritual being, and so I think there's this underlying theological element to it. Some of the questions were that Plato would raise are things like, how are these ideas corrupting the youth? He even said at one time that some of these ideas were not things that were out of the ordinary, or they could go down the street and read these ideas in textbooks or things like this. And he uses kind of this example of using animals, or I believe horses, saying that is it just one thing that leads something to corruption? Is it one thing? Oh, there's only a singular thing that will lead you down the wrong direction, and while everything else in life is beneficial for you. But he says that he believes it's quite the opposite. That there's very few things in life that are good and beneficial for you, while most things will lead you to corruption. Some of these objections, he continues saying, how can you prove, or what can you say is wrong about my ideas, or just give me anything, any consideration. That's one thing I noticed is his continual kind of pointing out of a lack of consideration as far as the government or the jury, that there was a lack of understanding about what Pluto or Plato believed, and what Socrates believed, and so nobody could really give very distinct answers about why these ideas were wrong, other than just that they were corrupting the youth, and they couldn't even say why. Their objections, and the few things that they had to say were contradicting each other, when they would say things like, he doesn't believe in a God at all, or he doesn't believe in gods at all. And at the same time, he's teaching false spiritual teachings. And he goes on to say that a man cannot believe in spiritual things and not believe in a God, nor can he believe in a God and not believe in spiritual things. So their own arguments are contradicting themselves, and just really pointing out that they don't have a lot of ground to stand on as far as really this trial in general. Um, I would say a couple things that stuck out to me about this reading is that Plato is very self-aware and truly stands on what he believes, in the sense that he doesn't even prepare a speech, or, like you said, he didn't write anything down. He's not going to use tactics like crying, or bringing in family to show that, you know, this trial is unjust. Just he's not beating around the bush. That he truly believes in what he's talking about, and he truly believes in his morals and his values. So much so that he believes that God gave him a mission to live his life this way, and that doesn't stop at this trial. That he'll have the words he needs to say, and that he's not even afraid about the outcome. That's another thing to me, is that he's so willing to die for what he believes, and not afraid of death because of what he believes, in the sense that no matter what the options for death are, that it's going to be better than the wickedness that has kind of overtaken the government at this point in time. And he understands he's not wise, unlike most of the people. He gives a couple examples about talking to other people, that because they were so good at one thing, they thought they were wise in um, all sorts of different things. A few questions I would say is, or just objections, I guess, that I kind of pondered is, um, what should we be willing so much so to die for what we believe, in the sense that we believe something so strongly that we would be willing to die for it. Um, that's something that I'm not sure about, because there's things that I believe nowadays um, that I don't know if I would be as strong to do so now. As far as like our faiths or our beliefs spiritually, that's a different thing. But are all beliefs something that you should stand on that strongly? That's just something that kind of stuck out to me. So yeah, thank you.